Welcome to the channel. Today we'll be doing a brake job on a Mazda CX-5. I made a list of tools for this job. Feel free to pause the video and gather these tools for your project. Starting off, I'll be using a 21mm socket and an impact wrench to remove the wheels. Now that all the bolts are off, you can remove the wheel. And now that we can see our brake system, we're going to start the brake job by removing the caliper bolt using a 14mm socket. There are two bolts here. After you get them removed, you'll have to set them aside somewhere safe. You don't lose them. We'll be needing them later. The caliper is disconnected now from the vehicle. We have to be careful it doesn't damage the brake line, so we have to secure the caliper temporarily out of the way. I'll be using zip ties, but caliper hangers work best. I'm going to be securing it to the upper portion of the strut. We have a good view of the brake pads now. A good way to get them out is just using a flathead screwdriver and just prying them out. You can see here that these pads are well overdue. There's no brake material left. Now onto the mounting bracket. There are two bolts holding on the mounting bracket. I'll be using a 17mm to remove them both. These bolts are often on there tight, so you might need some extra strength or leverage to get them loose. Now that we have the two mounting bolts and bracket off, we'll also want to set those aside. Final piece to remove will be the rotor. The rotor tends to be held in place by rust, especially in the Midwest where I'm from. To help the rotor come off, I'll be using a little bit of a rust penetrating spray, then some love taps with the dead blow mallet to help you get it off the rest of the way. At this point, after the rotor is off, we are halfway through the project, and we'll be assembling the brake system with its new parts now. Before we start putting on new parts, we'll need to prep the mating surface on the hub. So I'm using some wire brushes to clean up the rust and help knock off any other debris that would prevent a flat mount with the rotor. We'll use a little brake parts cleaner to remove any of the rust penetrating oil we used previously. Totally optional, but I like to add a couple dabs of anti-seize cream on the hub to prevent the rotor from rust welding itself back onto the hub in the future. If you guys do this, make sure not to add any to the lug bolts as that messes with the torque specs. Now the exciting part, we get to unpackage the new rotor and put that on. But before we do that, we have to use a little brake cleaner and remove the manufacturer oil on the brake parts. After we give the rotor a good wipe down, we can seat the rotor onto the hub. Next, we gotta find our mounting bracket. Check the slider pins to make sure they're not seized. Typically, if they are, you wanna re-grease them. If they're hard in place, we'll replace the entire caliper. But for now, these pins seem good. We'll remove the old hardware for the brake pads, and we'll clean off this mounting bracket of any rust and debris as well with the wire brush. Pay special attention to the inside grooves of the mounting bracket. This is where the brake pad is going to be sliding on. After we do our absolute best to get all the rust that we can off with the wire brush, we'll set the mounting bracket aside and prep our brake parts. When we have those, locate these new brackets for the new brake pads. We'll be putting these small brackets onto the main mounting bracket. They're very easy to put in place. They go like this and just snap into place. After you hear that click, just make sure that these brackets are sitting flat against the metal. Now this part is kind of tricky. I'm using my knees to push the rotor flat against the hub and put the mounting bracket on while simultaneously threading those 17mm bolts onto the mounting bracket in the back. I'm just using my hands to hand tighten those two 17mm bolts to prevent them from cross-threading. I don't want to use any hand tools quite yet. After we got it on there as far as it can go by hand, I'll grab my ratchet, 17mm socket, and tighten it up the rest of the way. At this point, you want to make sure that the bracket is sitting on there pretty tight. So double, triple check, because this mounting bracket is what holds the brake caliper onto your vehicle. So double check. Check out this difference. The new pad on top, the old pad on bottom, quite a bit material removed. Now installing the new pad material, I found it best to kind of approach it at an angle and slide the ears into those mounting bracket channels, and the pad should sit flush like this. Same thing from the backside. The backside tends to be a little bit more trickier because it's hard to see, but same process as the front pad. Now remember those zip ties? I'll be cutting those zip ties here to remove the brake caliper from the top of the strut and setting it on top of the new rotor like this. Now I'll be using this caliper depressor tool that looks like this. I'll put a link in the description. It makes pushing down the caliper piston super easy. Without it, you wouldn't be able to install the new brake pads. So I'm using an old brake pad to to put onto the piston to push down the piston. After you have it depressed all the way, you just want to make sure that no rubber boot is popping out. This one kind of popped out a little bit, so I'm pushing it back in. I'll be taking the caliper now, making sure that the brake line is not twisted in there, and setting it in place on top of the new brake pads. After we have the caliper seated, we can grab our 14mm bolts that we set aside earlier and thread those on by hand. Now we can grab our 14mm socket and make sure that those top caliper bolts are also pretty snug. Now we can do a quick inspect of our work and put the wheel back on. Now that we got the wheel hung on the lug bolts, we'll thread the lug nuts onto them in a star pattern. I don't think this is crucially important at this point, but I like to get them hand tightened on at least a little bit. And then we'll go in a star pattern with the 21mm socket to get it snug all the way. Now with the impact wrench, I'll go on the lowest setting and I'll do another star pattern around the wheel to get the wheel snug, and then we'll be ready to drop the vehicle. And I'll do star pattern one more time, 100 foot-pounds of torque with the torque wrench. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that helped.